Hey, my name is Brian Curtis, and I'm the founder of Decentralized Systems. And today I have Adam Pergande. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Pergande.
Pergande. I never get the last name right. I do not know why. That's all right. Right. So is it an Italian name or?
I've been told it's German, skeptical about that because it doesn't quite have a German ring to it, but that's where I'm from, allegedly.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know why I asked that question. I never asked that question. Anyway, you're a professional coach. Maybe you could tell us, why you got into coaching and, what experiences you had maybe that brought you there.
Yeah. So I mean, coaching for me, I was exposed to coaching probably about 5 years ago now, through a program that my work was running, that was kind of looking at developing your purpose and your vision, as an employee. And we were given access to a coach to work with us through that process. And it's the first time that I ever experienced someone talking about me for me. Not my performance, not what I'm doing at my job or how I can move up to the next level or where I need to improve, that kind of stuff, but more of just like how am I doing as a person, and seeing the whole me inside and outside of work and how all of that affects the way we show up. And I think that was just a very eye-opening experience from that perspective of this is something that a lot of people could take advantage of. This is something that a lot of people don't get exposure to and don't have the ability to look beyond just what their manager is talking to them about, right? Like you come in and you have work goals, you have things that you're supposed to do, but there's so much more than that. Yeah, so about 5 years ago, that's kind of where like this switch was flipped, and I wanted to make that my career, what I wanted to do. So I went for training. I got my certification from the University of Wisconsin for professional coaching, and from there, to me, it's about reaching that individual where they are, bringing, my whole self so that they can bring their whole self and that they can work on whatever they want to work on, in providing that space for them to have that opportunity. In addition to that, so I do personal coaching. I do specifically career coaching and coaching for individuals moving into management or starting in management. I do team coaching as well. So working with teams to kind of understand where they're at, what dysfunctions do they have, how they can work through them, what is maybe preventing them from getting to a spot where they are high performing, and kind of starting that with a foundation of trust.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a similar experience. I experienced just a lot of dysfunction in communities, and everyone needs coaches. Even if you're a coach, I don't know if you have a coach now, but yeah, I think everybody should have a coach. It's somebody to kind of prop them up and keep them going. To make sure that they're on schedule of what their goals are, and keep that structure for growth. Right. I'm curious to see how many years was your program there that you went to school for?
It was 1 year. So it's a
Okay.
1 year program. It's 9 months. It goes over the school year. But it's a very intense program, very rigorous. It's akin to like an MBA program.
Okay. A common theme between all the coaches that I've interviewed here in the last couple months is usually it's some kind of form of self-discovery, right? You kind of touched on it when you said, that your coach is actually interested in you. So it kind of makes you think about what you want to do instead of just kind of doing what you're told or doing what everybody expects of you, right?
Yeah.
And one question, I think it was Darren Walker on the last podcast that I had, he tries to get into, especially people that are running their businesses. People really don't think about from a day-to-day basis of what they actually want to do, right? We have so many things that we need to do on a day-to-day basis, but people don't really think about what they want to do, and then just kind of going for that one thing that they want to do. Can you maybe touch on that? And, if you approach that subject and anybody on your personal coaching or your group coaching?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of expectations that are on us just as individuals. Maybe it's a familial expectation that you need to provide for your family, or maybe it's an expectation that you're working with your manager and you need to move up to that next level, or you need to provide something, you need to show up in some way. But yeah, it is a good point that, like, when do we think about ourselves? When do we, focus on the person in the seat versus all of these other things that are kind of floating around saying that we should do this or we should do that. And I think that's a big part of coaching is reflection on how we are experiencing things and what we're feeling in the moment, and how we can, navigate that in order to get what we want to get out of it. And I think that's the power of coaching, really, in just looking at it from that point of, this is about that person. This is all about them, what they want. They're the driver. The coach is not the driver. The client or the individual you're coaching is the driver. They're there to provide the content, be the expert in the field, because I don't know you. I don't know what's going to work for you. I don't know your experiences, and you know you. I'm there to provide you the support and ask you the questions that maybe you're not thinking of. And so giving you that outside, kind of viewpoint to reflect that back as the individual going through coaching, to understand what is important to me, what do I want to get out of this, and where do I want to go. I think that's kind of just really the nature of what we're getting out of coaching, is how we can take those pieces that we don't think about all the time and manifest them into where we want to go.
Yeah, I think one of the most difficult things, just I was thinking about this while you're talking about, when you're coaching teams, if you approach the subject of what people feel most fulfilled by, it's usually never what they're actually doing. So it ends up with, breaking down relationships in teams because people are having to do things that they don't want to do. And so that they are dysfunctional in the way that they're presenting themselves in front of each other, and misconceptions and misinterpretations, miscommunications happen nonstop because they don't want to go to work, right? Because they're not fulfilling what they want to do. So I think that maybe you could touch on how to fulfill that aspect of coaching. How do you teach teams that are doing a lot of menial tasks where they need to overcome things and maybe support each other and try to build those relationships instead of showing up to work every day and just like, I don't want to be here, right?
Yeah. So I'm also a Gallup certified strengths coach, and I think Strengths Finder is a really great tool. And I have done strengths in teams, so everyone on the team gets their full strengths report, and then you lay it out in a matrix for them so they can kind of see where their themes are and where their strengths lie across the team. And it's pretty eye-opening, just from the perspective of, so we have these tasks fall into these specific themes. What strengths or what individuals do we have with strengths in those themes? And when you break it down that way, you can look at, okay, so I've got Joe over here and he's really good at executing, but we have him doing all of the kind of relationship stuff. He's not doing the strategic thinking, he's doing relationships. And so maybe he's really good at relationships, but that's not filling him up because it's not a strength for him. And so we talk about, kind of filling that bucket or draining the bucket. And when you're in an area of strength, when you're working on something that falls within your naturally given strengths, you're filling that bucket up and it's getting you towards that fulfillment state or where you're passionate about it. That doesn't mean that you're not good at something else. You can be really good at something else, but it's constantly draining you, and it's not getting you to the point where that bucket is, being replenished. And so you get to the point, the bottom of the bucket, your bucket is empty and you're at burnout. You're in a situation where you're right, you don't want to be there anymore. You're doing these menial tasks that aren't, they're not important to you. They're not something that you're bought into. And so you're looking for other jobs, or you're doing other things. You're maybe slacking off at work, and you're not being the team player that you want to be. So taking that strengths matrix and kind of looking at, how do we get the people that we have on this team into a position where they are able to be fulfilled and do the work that is naturally something they're good at.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest hurdles to overcome. I've worked in a lot of different groups over the last 25 years, and putting people in the right positions where they're being fulfilled and they're happy doing that job, I think is probably on average, probably less than 10%, if I were to guess, on average, just on a team atmosphere that's not being coached correctly. And, most groups aren't being coached, right? I mean, I don't know what the percentage is nationally of team coaching, but I think we only had maybe one coach available in all the atmospheres that I ever worked in, and they weren't utilized correctly, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, relationships just kind of broke down, and if you don't have that forward momentum, maybe you could throw some tools at us. What kind of other tools that you guys use to make sure that relationships are building and growing in momentum?
So I think something that's really great for teams, there's a lot of different things out there for charters. So just kind of creating this piece, a documentation that says, this is how we work. This is how, what our purpose is. This is what we're going to look like when we're in conflict, or what our expectations are of each other and of the business. What are our metrics for success? So starting out a team, and this can be something where they're forming, and so you want to put a charter out there just to get them all on the same page. It also could be something where you want to do a reset, or you notice that they're not functioning to the level you want them to be. So you say, all right, let's do a charter. And it's something that I've developed a lot of competency over time, and just as far as the navigation and facilitation of it. But a lot of it is allowing the team to get their voices out there and have them feel like they have a say. Additionally, I like to do something that I call like a team member share out. So what we, as individuals in an organization, let's say, right now it's especially challenging because a lot of places are remote, but even before that, you had a cubicle, right? Or you sat next to someone. What did you really know about that person? What, experiences did you have with them outside of, well, this person works on this and I work on, this piece. And sometimes we have conversations about it when I need them to do something for me, or they need me to do something for them. The team member share out or profile is kind of just a picture of you, a picture of what's important to you. Maybe you put a picture of your family on there. Maybe you put, your favorite TV show, or you put that you are, an avid soccer player, or, that you play, video games, or whatever it is, right? It's what you want to share with your teammates. And then as you go through this process, you all get the opportunity to share it. So it's, it's a meeting, and you get, let's say, 10 minutes to share who you are. Your team gets to ask you questions about it. There's engagement. They start to understand you more outside of work, and that builds connections. It builds connections because now I know that you can see the Darth Vader in the background, that so-and-so also likes Star Wars, and we have a connection where we can talk about Star Wars. I had a team where there were 8.
You were talking about your shadow self there for a second.
Oh, right. Yeah. That too. Yeah. I had a team where there were 8 individuals, and they were all leaders throughout the organization, and they were coming together as this like overarching management team. And unbeknownst to them, before this meeting, before we went into this profile share out, none of them knew that they were gardeners. And we walked out of there, and 6 of them were actually avid gardeners. And they had this conversation around what they were growing and what their, success was looking like. And, oh, you grow that, I'm going to bring some in for you, and like all this kinds of stuff. And those things are, unrelated to maybe the work that we do in, any given environment, but it creates connections. It creates opportunities for conversation. It creates that extra piece, that personal piece that we're missing a lot of the time. And so putting that out there and really just giving the team the opportunity to learn about each other when it's not about the work, even though it is serving the work.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm in total agreement. I'm a firm believer in the fact that there's no such thing as a business relationship, right? I think all relationships are personal, and you got to treat them that way. And you're not going to want to reach out to somebody for help if you don't know them that well. And so any
Yeah.
kind of system to make sure that people are growing and learning about each other is going to only help the work, right?
Yeah,
The work is a byproduct of how good the relationships are in that environment. So
absolutely.
um, I got one more question for you. So
Nice.
that I'm always asking stories. Maybe think of your favorite story. It could be a childhood story, a work-related story, a success story, anything you think of that could be applicable that people would like to share a part of yourself with us.
Oh, that's a tough one. Just from that standpoint, but you know, I had this one individual who came to me. It was a coaching relationship. We had been working together for a long time, and we got into the flow of things. I was asking some questions. She was bringing some things to me, and she started talking about she was at the store and she was looking for this planner. She didn't know why this was important, but she knew that it was important. There was something about it that was important about looking for this planner. And we got through this conversation, we're talking about it, and we get to a point where she recognizes that she's not showing up in the way that she wants to show up in meetings. And this is, as a manager, she wants to show up a certain way. And she realizes that her calendar is so booked full that she goes meeting, 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 meeting. And she doesn't have this opportunity to decompress between meetings, to have that reset. And she realizes that that was the exact reason that she was at the store looking for this planner, because she wanted to have this piece that was giving her a place to put notes, or a place to put this, take away from the meeting, a place to, kind of just have everything in the same space. And then she goes, but that wouldn't have helped because there's nothing out there that I'm looking for right now. And she goes on to then create this planner for herself. She puts together a document, she puts together, everything that she needs, and she creates it from scratch. And she walks away at the end of it and she goes, that was amazing. Like, I had no idea why I was there at the store. I had no idea, like what the background was, but now it's like all coming together. It's just these pieces of ourselves that are showing up in our daily life that we don't even recognize why they're important. And I came out of that and I was like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything in that conversation. She coached herself. I was just there. I was there and I witnessed it. And really it was this eye-opening moment for me that, like, what I didn't necessarily coach her. I do think that she coached herself, but I provided the space for that. I provided the opportunity for her to experience that. And that, like, that's what a lot of people need. That they need someone who's there to listen to them. They need someone who's there to provide that space for them and just kind of like give that opportunity for genius to show up.
Yeah,
And
just a channeler, right?
exactly. And I don't know if that's like a huge success story, but that was just something that came to mind, is that, like, it was a very awakening moment for me of that, like, I don't have to be all of this something out there, but more of just like providing that space and that opportunity for someone to experience for themselves and for their own genius to come out.
That's an excellent point. And I've heard this, and I've been through this before, but healers will tell you, energy healers especially, that they're just a conduit there, that the person is actually healing themselves. They're just kind of doing the intermediate work. They're the facilitator.
Sure.
And so many of us have been facilitators without even knowing it, right? And it's just because you were aware of it enough to understand what was going on there. That's a good story.
Thank you.
So thanks, Adam. Thanks for joining me today. This has been a good podcast, and I hope we keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian.
All right. Thanks, man.